France is well known globally for its rich history in art, architecture, and culture, and draws huge numbers of visitors all over the world every single year. But not only is it a world leader in fashion, France has also always been a world leader in the fashion doll and the doll world in general. As early as the 18th century, dolls known as poupées de mode, which means fashion doll, were being sent all over Europe, mostly coming straight from Paris. Several doll companies have been extremely well known and successful in France, such as Carole and Gégé. The Millie doll is one of the most popular Barbie competitors of the 1960s. There's also the incredibly well-known Bluette doll, fully posable small doll who's been released since the late 1900s. Earlier this year, I visited the Musée du Jouet in Colmar, and I was really inspired by their collection of Bella dolls. Bella is a slightly less well-known but long-standing company in the French history of the doll. And one of the interesting things that Bella did was bring the fashion doll Tressy into France, licensing from the American character to create their own version. The Bella Company actually began in 1946, significantly earlier than the introduction of Barbie and the rise of the fashion doll in the modern world. But they had already been successful with several other dolls before this. In the 1960s, when the fashion doll boom really began to strike, Bella decided to get on board by introducing the Tressy from American character, and this soon led to the introduction of Cathie, who is the large doll you can see here. But Cathie's story really did begin with Tressy. The Tressy who was introduced by Bella initially used the exact same sculpts as the American character doll, who was gaining quite strong popularity in the United States at the time. She used the same molds and the same mechanism for her hair, although there were also some dolls produced who didn't have the hair mechanism early on in Tressy's life in France. This blonde Tressy is from 1967. She is an early version of the Bella releases and she does not have the hair mechanism. But what's interesting about her is that she uses the exact same body sculpt, and we can see here that she actually has the imprints for where the hair mechanism would be. She just doesn't have one. Most of the Bella Tressys did more accurately copy and reproduce the American character body. They had a mechanism to extend and reduce the length of the hair, and like American character, the doll would have come with a key to help you to use the extendable mechanism. The Bella Company released its first Tressys in 1965, and the success of this doll in just a couple of years led the company to create its own fashion doll sculpt. This was Cathie. Cathie's first release was in 1967, and she's generally considered to be a 44 centimetre fashion doll, though it is known that depending on her year of release, they did vary between about 43 and about 48 centimetres tall. She also had, early on in her life, a couple of friends who were slightly taller, but these dolls were not as successful as Cathie, and so she was the only one who remained long term. Although Tressy was definitely an inspiration for this doll, and looking at the two of them side by side, you can see that there are a lot of similarities. Cathie is nonetheless a personality on her own right, and not just a larger version of Tressy. She bears some similarities, but she also has many differences. The first releases of Cathie from 1967 to 1969 had no hair mechanism. She was a regular full head of hair for a fashion doll, and she also had hard plastic legs. Her full body is made of plastic and is relatively lightweight. The legs in particular do feel like perhaps not a terribly high quality type of plastic. In 1969, a new body style was introduced for Cathie that added several features that would extend her play capabilities. But first of all, we can see that she has a similar mechanism as the Tressy doll. She has the belly button, and on her back she has a wheel that will retract her hair or extend it, depending on how we pull and turn it. She also has very different legs. So gone are the lightweight plastic, and now she has legs that are covered in tights. These tights are actually part of the doll. They cannot be removed. And I would say that they are a slight flaw in her design, as when you look at Cathie's now on the market, because they're of course all secondhand and vintage, these tights do suffer a lot of wear, and it is unusual to get a doll who really has perfect legs. But these legs are made from a substance that allows them to bend and to hold a pose, so that does allow her that significant play value for children. Along with those features, we can see that there were some other slightly more subtle changes that happened to Cathie at this time. The most noticeable one is her arms. We can see that they are both longer and a little larger. This makes her overall have a slightly more realistic appearance. She's also a little bit taller. If we look at where the shoulders are standing, the second Cathie is about 1 centimetre higher for her shoulders. The face sculpt did also fill out a little over time, as did the body and the torso. Initially, when the tights were introduced onto the Cathie body, they were white, and you can find dolls that have the white tights and no retractable hair, because they did come at the same time. At a little bit later, to add to the realism of the doll, the tights were changed to this colour, which was considered a more flesh colour and therefore more realistic. The original Cathie doll with hard legs was released with little slip-on plastic shoes, whereas these shoes changed to boot releases when she has the tights. These would slip on a little bit more easily over the tights and would cover up that appearance as well. Cathie's were released with a whole variety of different hair colours. The blonde was probably the most common, and we had a few different shades of blonde. There are also redheads out there. Brunettes are a little bit less common, and over time this hair did tend to become a little bit fragile. So if you are purchasing a brunette on the second-hand market now, just be careful with their hair, as when you do style it, it is liable to fall out somewhat. Like hair colour, there were different eye colours. Most commonly, the brunettes had brown eyes and the blondes had blue eyes, and it is a little bit rare to find the brunettes with blue eyes, but there are various different colour styles and combinations. Unlike the majority of fashion dolls and dolls out there, one interesting thing to note about Cathie is that she has no company markings whatsoever anywhere on her body at any times for her release. Cathie had many different and incredibly beautiful outfits released for her every year, and it is a wonderful way to look back at the history of fashion, as her outfits did represent what was popular in that incredible time of fashion change between the 1960s and the 1980s. She tended to follow the trends of regular street fashions. One of the things that makes these dolls really fun and appealing for collectors is how, because both Cathie and Tressy were released in tandem, their outfits did mirror each other, and you could often get paired outfits. Each release year, Cathie and Tressy would highlight a new presentation outfit, that is, the one that the doll could be bought wearing in her box. This one is the presentation outfit from 1980. It was available in all different colours. This one is the light blue. This pair is wearing the presentation outfit from 1975, and again we can see a little bit of variation in the colours of the blue denim that the dolls are wearing. This Cathie wears an incredibly beautiful dress that would have been purchased separately. It's called Yesterday, and it comes from 1977. In 1982, the Bella Company was sold to Berchet, and this would nearly be the end of the life of Cathie as a doll. She was released for a couple of years afterwards with a few changes, losing again the extendable hair and also the bendable legs within that time, and with that losing some popularity, so that 1984 was the last year of Cathie's release. Although it's a shame that Cathie's life ended then, she's an amazing doll who's left a real legacy of fashion in the doll industry, both in France and across the world. As there were a lot of Cathies released in her time, it's relatively easy to find these dolls secondhand now and at relatively reasonable prices too. That's fantastic, as I really recommend this doll as an interesting and also beautiful larger doll to add to your collection, and also one who is fantastic as a play doll.